just saw it to Joe's like, oh, he was down there, right? Oh, remember. Alrighty, Marty Napoleon was going to come and play now, which would have been a treat, but unfortunately he couldn't make it. But he does send his regrets that he's not here, and I think you all know how much Marty loved Joe, and I don't need to say anymore. Marty was the piano player in the clip just now, and he's 91, and his hands are okay for playing, but it's a little hard for him to get over here to ambulate. So Marty sends his best regards. So we're going to go on with the program, and we're going to have a few words from a very good friend of Joe's drummer, the drummer, Mike Bergeron.
So Chuck and I was about the same age. So we often were on gigs together with Joe. And a very interesting gig that I played one summer with him was out in Long Beach. And Johnny Windhurst and Eddie Hubbell were on that job. And maybe Chuck was there too. I don't remember who was in the rhythm section. Really, maybe playing bass. But it was a very interesting gig in the fact that we played there all summer long on the weekends, and nobody ever came. We went there just as true as can be, and we played and had a wonderful time. And that's what music is all about, is just showing up and playing your heart out. I wanted to share with you another time that I experienced a wonderful time with Joe in the fact that my wife Patty and I were hanging out at Jimmy Ryan's, and it was at that time that Charlie Shavers was very ill. He had throat cancer. And Roy Eldridge had a broken foot, I think, if not a broken leg, but I know he was in a cast. And we stopped by there late, and Charlie Shavers came in to play and to jam with his friend Roy. And it was something to see. And every time I saw Joe, and let me share one part about that. Roy was stuck on the bandstand because of his broken foot. And Charlie Shavers walked up and down the bar. And he played in everybody's ear. He had his mute in his horn, and he stopped in front of Patty and I at the corner of the Ryan's bar there. And he played for everybody, and he went back. And then he disappeared, and very shortly after that, he passed away. But Joe was in the band at that time, as you all know. And so we always talked about that. Whenever I saw Joe, we reminisced about that one night, and it was just the one song. That's all it was. It was a very great experience for me, and the fact that Joe and I could share that together. Very few people were in the bar that night when it was very late. Another time, I'll tell you something. This is very quick, and I'll be out of here. Joe hired me for a job in Liberty, New York, and I came through Liberty, New York today to get here. Came down when I was 17, and it made me think of this. Joe packed us into a Beetle. He had a little Beetle at the time, a Volkswagen Beetle, with my drums and everything in it. I don't know how many musicians were in the car, I don't know, but I do know that it had a very poor heater. And we went there for New Year's, so we froze pretty good, going up and coming back, but we had a marvelous time. And I cherish those peculiar, funny, interesting little memories of Joe. He was a very, very nice man and a very kind man. I never heard him badmouth anyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. The next person is Bob here. Bob Goldstein. Oh, here he is, yes. Our next speaker is the man, well, he'll tell you why he knows Joe. Bob Goldstein.
Thank you. Good evening. Joe was very important to me. I'm the author of Washington Square and the co-creator of American Pop Fusion, which was called Folk Dixie, when the Village Stompers introduced it in 1963. In 2013, Washington Square will be 50 years old. A few years ago, I had the pleasure of seeing Joe perform for the first time after many years when I was on sort of a retreat in California. When I came back, I contacted him. He was to me the heart and soul of the Stompers, although he was not the leader. He to me was the man I could talk to. And I saw him perform at Clay Felker's memorial ceremony
at the Ethical Culture Society on the West Side. To this day, I don't know what ethical culture means, but to see him perform again with a new group of musicians gave me an idea, and I thought ahead thinking, well, in 2013, Washington Square will be 50 years old, and I would like to celebrate it, and I thought I would celebrate it by creating a new album of material. And of course, I talked to Joe about it, and he said, write the material. So I started writing material. A couple songs I presented to him. He had his criticisms, he had his compliments, and he said, the thing is, you have to go out and raise the money because there are really no labels today that would do something like this. And I said, I will do that. Well, about 9 months ago, I finally raised the money, and I was going to bring it to Joe's attention the next time I thought it was appropriate, later in the summer, and here we are. So I guess it's a scene from Death of a Salesman, or one of the plays where at the end the mortgage is paid off, but the gentleman who paid the mortgage is no longer allowed to benefit from it. And of course his wife looks up at the sky and says, we're free and clear, we're free and clear, we have the money now. And so that's my personal connection to Joe. I want to just end with one more short story. My experience with the diving horse at Steel Pier in Atlantic City. In 1961, I had a record that I was touring with called Summer School, and it was produced by the wonderful people who wrote Candy and High on a Windy Hill. That was Alex Kramer and his wife Joan Whitney. And I was booked into the ballroom at Steel Pier on a Saturday afternoon. There was a gentleman there named Ed Hurley who was doing sort of a Camden version of American Bandstand, and you would get up on a stage and you would lip sync your recording. So to prepare for it, since I was early bald, I got some shoe polish and I colored in the spot in my hair. I looked like a Capuchin monk, and there I was on stage, and they had 2 cameras photographing me, and I lip synced to my recording. Afterwards, I called my folks back in Philadelphia. My mother got on the phone and she said, it was wonderful seeing you on television, but the problem is every time they stayed on you for more than a minute, they would cut away to the backside of the diving horse that was then up on the platform. And so when the Village Stompers finally played Steel Pier, I think 2 or 3 years later, I thought, finally I've come back in a way that really makes sense. Thank you very much. God bless.
Thank you, Bob. You heard Dan Morgenstern speak earlier about the tarogoto, and I don't know, Dan, if you knew that Scott Robinson brought his with him. He just happens to have his tarogoto with him, and I think that's one that you bought from Joe, if I'm not incorrect, but you can tell the story. Scott Robinson, ladies and gentlemen. Scott Robinson, ladies and gentlemen.
Joe Muranyi, or Muranyi, as I should say, correct pronunciation. He was very proud of his Hungarian heritage and very interested and knowledgeable about Hungarian history. And one of the things that brought us together, one of our points of intersection, was this instrument, the tarogoto, which is a uniquely Hungarian thing. It has a very special, beautiful sound, certain singing quality to it, and Hungary is an amazing place. They have their own music, their own instruments. It's an incredible culture, and Joe was very involved and interested in that culture. So he had a small collection of these. I had always been interested in them. So at some point he started selling me some of the ones that he wasn't playing. And by this time I had almost all the tarogotos that he had, but this is the one that he held on to because this was made by Stowasser, the most desirable maker. And it's really, as Joe put it, it's a real player. for when he wanted to play the instrument, which he didn't do in public very often. But anyway, he hung on to this one until the end, and when he was in the hospital his last days, he said that he wanted me to have it. So here it is. I don't know if I can do it justice, but I'm going to try to play a Hungarian traditional tune. And this is a tune that, we would sit and talk about the tarogoto. He knew the whole history of it, who the makers were, who made different little improvements and things on it. And he could tell me how various invaders would take them away and pile them up and burn them. And all, it was a fascinating source of information. So when we were talking about the music, he said, yeah, there's this great tune. It's great for the tarogoto. He said, it even has the word tarogoto in the lyrics. And I said, really? He said, yeah, it's about a castle. I said, what's it called? He told me the title, and I wrote it down, thinking, I've got to research this to find this song. Well, when I got these instruments from him, this Stovatzer came with another one, and this is in B flat, the other one's in A. And there were these old tunes in the case, in his hand, manually. And by golly, there was a tune he was telling me about, Krasznahorka Buske Vara. I'm sure I said it wrong. And, the lyrics about the proud, roomy castle covered by the blur of the night, the autumn wind among the towers. I'm not going to get through all this, but from the tower late at night, the tarogoto doesn't sound far. That's actually in the lyrics here. Okay, so I'm going to attempt to play that for you, about the proud, lonely castle. And then, another thing that I asked Joe about when he was in the hospital there his last days, I asked him, what song did you really love playing with Armstrong the most? What was your favorite song that you felt good playing with him? And he was very weak at the time, and he started singing in his very small voice, and I couldn't. Greg Cohen, the great bassist Greg Cohen, was with me, and I couldn't make out what he was singing. But Greg picked up on it and said, "Ole Miss." And Joe said, "Yeah, Ole Miss. That was fun. That one was fun to play." So I'm going to play the little Hungarian song and then go into Ole Miss. And Chuck Folds is going to join me, and I think Simon Wettenhall, whoever else wants to come in and play Ole Miss in A flat, which is not a very good key for this thing.
Thank you.